Hey guys, welcome back to more r/BestOf Redditor updates. In today's Ripestories video, at midnight, my daughter called me hysterical about what she found on her husband's phone. By the end of that week, 2 marriages were over, a 5-year-old lost his home, and I stopped speaking to my own child. And the reason why is worse than you are thinking. Let's dive right into the video. Today's XXL title story is from r/BestOf Redditor updates and is titled "My Daughter Slept with Her Sister's Husband." So I, 59, female, have 2 daughters, Emma, 35F, and Chloe, 33F, and Emma has been married to her husband, 36, male, for 11 years, and they have 2 children together. Chloe has been married to her husband, 34, male, for 8 years, and they have 1 5-year-old son. About 6 weeks ago, Emma called me just after midnight, completely hysterical. She told me she had suspected for months that her husband was hiding something from her. He had become distant, constantly guarded his phone, and was always finding excuses to stay late at work. And well, that night, after he fell asleep beside her, she looked through his phone for the first time, and she found years of explicit messages between him and Chloe. The affair had been going on for almost 4 years, and Emma was devastated. She kept asking me how her own sister could do this to her. A few days later, we were at my brother's birthday party when Emma confronted Chloe outside. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I forgot to mention, maybe you've heard parts of this story before, but now the story is concluded and the update is really fresh. So anyway, Chloe denied everything at first and insisted that Emma had misunderstood, and when Emma said she had read the messages herself, Chloe completely fell apart. She started crying, admitted the affair, and kept repeating, "I don't know why I did it. I'm so sorry. It was the biggest mistake of my life." Emma asked how 4 years could possibly be a mistake, and well, Chloe had no answer. The argument escalated into a screaming match, and Chloe tried to slap Emma, but several relatives stepped in before she could. And wait guys, I'm kind of confused. Why did Chloe try to slap Emma? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Anyway, Chloe's husband quietly took their son home after realizing what had happened, and within days, he told Chloe he wanted a divorce. Emma also filed for divorce after her husband admitted everything, and after it all came out, Chloe called me 82 times in one day. I answered once because I hoped she was calling to explain herself, but instead she cried the entire time, begging me not to abandon her. She said she had already lost her husband and was probably going to lose shared custody of her son and couldn't bear losing her mother too. She said she knew she didn't deserve forgiveness but begged me not to hate her forever. I told her I could not look at her the same way anymore. I said this was not one bad decision, it was years of lying to her sister, her husband, and the rest of us, and I told her I loved her because she's my daughter, but I didn't want to contact with her for the foreseeable future. And well, since then, I've ignored every attempt she has made to reach out. This is where my family thinks I am wrong. My sisters say that Chloe has already lost everything: her marriage, her relationship with her sister, many of her friends, and likely the family she dreamed of giving her son. They say she's genuinely remorseful and has started individual therapy and is not trying to justify what she did. They argue that if a mom won't stand by her child after they've hit rock bottom, who will? And by the way guys, if you would be in OP's shoes and your child had done something this awful, would you still forgive your child and support the kid? Or would you do the same as OP and basically go no contact with Chloe? Let me know in the comments, I'm really curious. Furthermore, they also reminded me that cutting Chloe off means my grandson is growing up without his grandmother, even though he's done nothing wrong. And yeah, I understand all of that, but every time I think about welcoming Chloe back into my life, I picture Emma reading those messages alone in the middle of the night, realizing that 2 of the people she trusted the most had been lying to her for years, and I don't know if I can move past that. My family says I'm punishing Chloe forever for something she already deeply regrets. I feel like I'm simply refusing to pretend it never happened, so Reddit, am I the a-hole? I know a lot of people are used to seeing cheating posts and always thinking they are fake, but what would you do if you were in my shoes? And now guys, let's read some Reddit comments. The first one said, "NTA, she is not genuinely remorseful, she's just sad that she got caught and is now facing consequences. Can't you have a relationship with your grandson via his father? Just tell your sisters to mind their own business, this is between you and your daughters and nothing to do with them." And then OP responded, "I kind of have a relationship with him, but the problem is that he wants his kid to grow up closer to his own family who lives in another city rather than his ex-wife's family. Commenter number 2 said, I mean, I personally cannot think of anything my kid would do that would cause me to cut her off permanently, but I would probably take a break for a while to organize my feelings. There is 10,000% nothing that could happen that would make me be willing to cut off my grandkid. What Chloe did was unforgivable, but I would ask you, how would you feel if something happened to Chloe right now? How would you feel? If you don't feel anything, then you have your answer about what you want to do. And then OP responded, it depends on what happens to her. If she's struggling with her mental health or got into an accident, I would obviously help her like any mother would. I admit though, I might have been harsh when I told her for the foreseeable future, but I was also thinking of my daughter Emma and how she would be feeling right now. I love both my daughters equally from the moon and back, but I'm just torn on this decision. Another commenter said, NTA, you have a daughter that has been completely destroyed by her own sister and her own husband. She is the one that needs your support, not the one that chose to cheat on her husband with her own sister's husband. She made the conscious decision for 4 years, and that's not forgivable in my eyes. She made the decision, she can face her own consequences, and I'm sure her soon-to-be ex-husband will still allow you to be part of your grandson's life. Reach out to him and let him know that you're not speaking to her, and just be there for Emma and her kids. OP responded, thank you so much. I've reached out to him but haven't heard anything back yet. And now we have an update to the story that goes like this. So I know it's very early for me to post an update and I wasn't planning on it, but after reading the comments on my first post, I decided I needed one final conversation with Chloe before I completely closed the door. I went to her house yesterday and I expected her to be emotional after calling me 82 times in one day, but she was surprisingly calm. I asked her the one question I still couldn't understand. Why? And she admitted she had been attracted to Emma's husband for years, and she said what started as admiration eventually became feelings, and over time they crossed a line, but instead of ending it, they just kept convincing themselves it would be the last time, and she insisted she regretted everything. I asked if she had spoken to Emma, and she told me the only contact she had was one text before Emma blocked her and everything, and Emma told her she had destroyed their family, taken away her children's stable home, and that she hoped the affair had been worth losing a sister forever because as far as she was concerned, Chloe no longer had one. Emma blocked her immediately afterwards. And then Chloe also admitted she later waited outside the school gates hoping to speak to Emma when she came to collect the kids, but Emma refused to speak to her and warned her to stay away from her and the children and told her that if she ever approached them again, she would regret it. Chloe left crying, and I told Chloe that her waiting outside the school was completely inappropriate and regardless of her intentions, but she insisted she only wanted to apologize and prove that she cared about Emma. I then asked if she truly felt remorseful, and that is when I completely lost my patience. Instead of taking full responsibility, Chloe started telling me that Emma's marriage had already been falling apart, and that Emma and her husband had been drifting apart for years and that he often confided in her. She admitted that the affair was wrong, but it repeatedly tried to place part of the blame on Emma, saying if their marriage had been happier, none of this would have happened. Honestly, disgusting behavior on the part of Chloe. I was furious. I honestly couldn't believe I had raised someone capable of thinking like that. I told her there's no marriage bad enough to justify secretly sleeping with your own sister's husband for 4 years, and I told her I was not just disappointed, I was ashamed that she was my daughter. The more she tried to justify herself, the angrier I became. The conversation eventually turned to her own divorce, and she talked about how difficult everything had been for her, and how her husband still plans to move to Washington with their son to be closer to his family, and she said she may have to move there too if she wants to stay close to him. As she spoke, I realized almost everything was about what she had lost, her marriage, her home, her reputation, and possibly seeing her son every day. However, very little of it was about Emma or the damage that she had caused, and at the end of the conversation, Chloe asked if we were cool now, and I told her no, we were not cool and we might never be again. I said that if I ever found it in my heart to reconcile with her, it would be on my terms and in my own time, not because she thought one conversation could erase 4 years of lies and betrayal. I walked out feeling angrier than when I arrived, and I honestly don't know what to do anymore. I love both of my daughters, but after that conversation, I'm not convinced Chloe truly understands the pain that she has caused. And now we will read some updated comments, and after that we will read the final update to the story. So the first comment said, why does the other woman always believe the "my marriage is falling apart and I'm not actually close to my wife" BS every single time? We all know this man would have happily remained in his marriage with his side chick sister-in-law forever, forever if Emma didn't find him out. And by the way, guys, that's also the feeling I get. A lot of these people just feel sorry because someone found out about what they did wrong. If nobody found out, there would have never been an apology, that's for sure. Hell, he's probably begging Emma in texts to give him another chance and that Chloe means nothing to him. A tale as old as time, but the women keep falling for it. Just baffling. And then OP responded, I'm pretty sure there might actually be a final part 3. I'm not sure how many parts I can keep making before Reddit says otherwise, but Emma and her husband did have some problems, but they were mostly, if not always, minor and nothing too serious. I'm still trying to process how it was going on for 4 years without anyone knowing. Another commenter said, I read the first post and I still am a bit confused as why Emma's husband's behavior changed all of a sudden if it was going on for 4 years. Why did he suddenly become cagey, defensive and hiding his phone if it's been going on for the last 4 years? OP responded, because Emma was all of a sudden curious and had a feeling that he was cheating on her. I think he sensed that and didn't want the secret to be found out. Commenter number 3, Chloe and Emma's husband are still seeing each other and are now free to be together. Why did they stay in their marriage if they were so unhappy? OP responded, Chloe told me that her and Emma's husband haven't talked since, and she texted him but he never responded. Commenter number 4, Chloe honestly sounds like a narcissist. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but I think it really fits here. Think about it, if you think I'm overreacting, in order to be able to cheat, you will have to put your empathy to your partner and others who might be affected by it aside and let your ego win. Chloe had to do this multiple times for 4 years. Who knows how many times they actually cheated? It could be over 100 times, and Chloe had to put aside everyone's feelings in favor of her own. That means her victims were husband, sister, son, nieces, nephews, and the mom, and all of those are people she is supposed to love the most. The fact that she was able to do this over and over again to people she claims to love is honestly deeply disturbing, and then for her to only care about herself afterwards. Again, I think she's a narcissist and I don't think she truly has empathy. I think she can fake it, and I think she has done that all the time, but I don't think she actually has it. Maybe she thinks she does, and she doesn't seem to feel guilt and remorse. She sounds incredibly entitled and also delusional, since she cannot accept the fact that her relationship with her sister is over for good and that your relationship to her will be forever affected in some type of way. She decided to break her sister's boundaries by showing up to her kid's school. Sorry, I think you just saw who your daughter actually is deep down, and I would honestly be a bit scared of my kid if they did this out of the blue. It would make me question what went wrong and what else they have done that I don't know about, but also I'm very scared of narcissists or just very selfish people in general. Those people can really do damage to you that lasts a lifetime. Thankfully, I've never had any experience with these people, but my god, they seem terrifying. What was her father like, by the way? Sorry if it's too personal, you don't have to answer, I'm just trying to figure out where she might get it from. However, I am a little worried that your family is going too easy on her. I hope they are not trying to guilt or shame Emma for not wanting to have anything to do with Chloe. And now we got the final update to the story, and it goes like this. So to answer the question I saw the most, Chloe's son is definitely her husband's. Chloe is white, her husband is black, and their son is mixed race, so there was never any question about that. The divorces are still going ahead and nothing has been finalized yet, but neither couple is trying to work things out anymore. And a lot of people also asked about my sisters, and yes, they knew about the affair before Emma even found out. They admitted that they stayed quiet because they thought it was a family matter and hoped it would end before anyone got hurt. I understand why they thought that, but I cannot agree with it. Emma spent years being lied to, while people around her knew the truth, and I've decided to cut both of my sisters out of my life. I don't know if that'll be forever, but they have broken my trust, and over the last few weeks I've spoken to both of my daughters separately. I asked Emma if enough time had passed for her to even think about talking to Chloe, but she said no. She told me she's not waking up angry anymore, but that doesn't mean that she's forgiven her. She said she accepted that the truth was always going to come out eventually. The only thing she could control was what she did after she found out. And she also said that she has no interest in having a sister anymore. As for her husband, she told me she has made one thing very clear. She will only respond if it is about the children or the divorce, everything else gets ignored. What surprised me was that he has not even stopped trying. He has sent long apology messages, videos about forgiveness and even Bible verses, and none of us are religious, so that confused all of us, and he keeps saying that she was the only woman he's ever loved and that he made one terrible mistake, and Emma hasn't replied to any of those messages. I also found out something Chloe never told me before. In my last update I said Chloe told me the only message Emma sent before blocking her was that she was no longer her sister, but that wasn't true. Emma later showed me the messages, and before Emma sent that final text, Chloe had blamed her for what happened. She told Emma that maybe if she'd paid more attention to her marriage, things would have been different. She also said that if her husband had felt happier at home, he wouldn't have looked somewhere else. Reading those messages honestly made me feel sick. When I confronted Chloe, she admitted she had sent them, and she said she was angry, desperate, and trying to make herself feel less guilty. She told me she regretted sending them almost immediately, but by then Emma had already blocked her. Chloe also told me she's moving to Washington once everything is finalized so she can stay close to her son, but in Florida they allow divorced families to stay, so I don't know why his father is planning to move there to be closer to his family, and Chloe doesn't want to be too far away from her child. She admitted that she had tried contacting Emma's husband after everything came out, but he never answered any of her messages, and she eventually stopped trying. She also told me she knows she'll never get her old life back, but she hopes moving will give her a chance to start over, and I told her that starting over does not erase what happened, and she agreed. A lot of people asked if I've forgiven Chloe, and I haven't. I still love her because she's my daughter, obviously, but I don't trust her anymore, and right now we don't have a relationship. Maybe that changes one day, maybe it doesn't, I honestly don't know. This whole situation has changed our family forever. Emma lost her husband and her sister, and Chloe lost her marriage, her relationship with her sister, and most of her family. And my sisters lost me because they chose to stay quiet. So this will be my last update, and I hope one day all of us can find some peace, even if we never become a family again. And yeah guys, I gotta clearly say, NTA-OP, you're not required to provide Chloe with instant forgiveness simply because the consequences have finally become painful for her. What stands out is that Chloe did not merely confess and take responsibility, she blamed Emma, lied to you about what she had sent, and appeared at the children's school after being told to stay away, and then asked whether you were cool after one conversation. That doesn't sound like someone who understands the scale of what she did. You can still love Chloe while refusing to trust her, or have a relationship with her right now. That's a boundary, not a punishment, and Emma has already lost her husband and sister. She deserves at least one close family member who's not asking her to make this easier for everyone else. Also, the absolute audacity to try and physically slap the sister you've been cheating on for 4 years is just crazy. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments. And the next part of the video is gonna be a compilation of some of the best relationship and cheating stories we have read over the years. The open relationship drama story starts like this. 5 years ago, I met the love of my life, and my life changed overnight. We were lab partners for chemistry in high school, originally paired up by crabby old Mr. Harris when everyone else was already sorted. Over the rest of the school year, Sarah and I would become closer friends until I finally mustered the courage to ask her to go with me to homecoming. My heart nearly skipped a beat when she said yes. The rest is history. We finished high school, we went to the same college, we moved in together, we even got jobs in the same pharmaceutical firm after graduation, and then came the big question. I took Sarah out to the restaurant by the lake, a monthly tradition for date night, so she didn't suspect a thing. Then I proposed with the same excitement and nerves I had on our first date, and she luckily said yes. In the months that followed, our happiness was replaced by strategy meetings and evenings of careful planning, all leading up to the big day. Not only did we have to pick the right moment to tell our respective families about our engagement, but I also had to consider who would or would not be on the guest list. As a little more context, we both come from pretty big families with a handful of brothers and sisters on both sides. And with that in mind, we knew there would be no chance of getting everyone together, even if a miracle occurred and all their schedules lined up. No way, not possible, so with careful consideration, we managed to cut the numbers down to our parents, our close relatives, and a couple of friends only. Sarah had the cunning idea of asking friends to help us set up the venue and managing the big day, a pay-for-their-seat scheme essentially. With 2 weeks to go, Sarah and I decided we needed a break from the stress of management, so instead met our friends, aka the wedding staff, on a night out. The evening was a blast and it really helped us all unwind. Sarah especially, who was getting caught up with a few of my old college friends after not seeing them in years. Despite our best intentions, wedding talk did slip into conversation from time to time, but it only made us more excited and impatient for it all to be over. During a particularly hazy part of the night, I found myself on the dance floor alone, finding Sarah in the outside alleyway 10 minutes later, talking to some guy. She seemed confused about why I was worried and insisted everything was fine, leading me back inside to continue the party. We stumbled out again around 2 or 3 AM after a long but happy night. The next morning was anything but happy, all wrecked by terrible hangovers we would much rather forget than experience this all over again. After time had passed and with a slightly clearer mind, I decided to ask Sarah who she was talking to the other night. Sarah, on the other hand, said she was still quite hazy with the details and couldn't remember much from that night. A few days passed as we quickly fell back into the routine of jobs during the day and venue bookings, seating arrangements and staff picks each evening. One completely ordinary Tuesday morning, I got a strange text from Sarah. I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but this is the gist of it. Hi honey, I cannot believe that the big day is finally nearly here. We used to think it was so far away, and look at us now. The day we'll be together is so fast approaching. Soon you will all be mine and I'll be all yours. We have spent so much of our adult lives together. I sometimes worry if I ever stopped you living your life. During our distant college years, the highlights of our youth, you were stuck by my side and never allowed to be wild or careless. You even gave up on a stag do because we were having financial issues. So I had a bit of a crazy idea today. Please, I just want you to hear me out. I want us both to let loose and be wild, do all the things you've never had the chance to do before. Just one day of us pretending that we were single, before we are bound together for a lifetime of loving commitment. You could call it a temporary open relationship to have some fun before the marriage. Sarah, X. I stared at my phone blankly for a while, reading the message over enough times that a coworker came over to poke fun at my odd behavior. I quickly hid my phone, only making myself looking even more suspicious as I went back to work. Under a strict environment, I had to wait until my lunch break to reply, but that did not stop Sarah's words ringing in my head. I had never thought about it before, what being single meant, that is. I was perfectly happy with my life with Sarah and always thought she had felt the same way. Her offer made me feel uncomfortable, so after a few discarded drafts later, I replied with heartfelt commitment and kindly refused her offer. I was still getting dinner ready when I heard the front door open. Sarah came in, passed through the kitchen, and went upstairs without a word. I thought nothing strange of it at first, assuming she had a bad day or was focused on something else. When she came downstairs, she ignored me again, sat on the sofa, and began to watch TV. After some difficulty, I managed to get her to finally open up and found out she was annoyed that I had turned down her dirty offer from earlier. When I asked why it bothered her, she told me that forever is a long time, and that I might wanna enjoy myself before it's final. Sarah was many things, but I'd never known her to lie before, so I believed her then when she said she was only thinking of me at the time. I reassured her that I was ready for the wedding and nothing would change my mind. Despite things calming down and seemingly reaching the end of the argument, Sarah suddenly flipped and stormed out in a huff. I went to go after her, but she drove off too fast to keep up with. What I first thought would be an hour's temper tantrum quickly turned into worry when Sarah was not home at midnight. I called many times but only ever reached her voicemail. I even left loads of text messages in case her signal was bad, but only got back silence. The next morning I went to work with little to no sleep and racked with terrible worry and guilt for somehow causing her to leave. I could only hope that she was alright. When I realized Sarah was still missing as I came home later that afternoon, I rang all of my groomsmen and college friends, practically begging them to help me look for her. The call to action was slow, but we managed to get together a search party for the next day. I ended up calling into work sick, putting my priorities straight without a second thought. Despite my best efforts, stress, exhaustion and a growing migraine only made me a liability, and my friends sent me home with a promise that they would carry on without me. A long nap later, I woke up in a panic as I raced to get dressed. Before heading out again, I found a piece of paper on my nightstand left by Sarah saying, "I'll be home a little after 7. I didn't want to wake you, so I went out for groceries." My heart sank in my chest and I nearly fell off my bed. My nightmare had finally ended. Sometime later, I was sitting watching TV when I heard the front door open behind me, snapping me out of my daze. I slowly shifted my weight towards the front door as I wondered whether it would be a happy reunion and a continuation of our last argument. I lost all doubt when I saw her. Sarah smiled and held me tight in her arms. She apologized for her outburst and any worry she had caused, explaining that she wanted to cool down before she came home. It seems her idea of cooling down this time being a movie marathon and takeaway pizza. Sarah said that she had not left her friend's house since she stormed out and that her friend lived in an area of horrible phone signal, so she never got any of my messages. I was not angry, I was not jealous, I was just happy to have her home. After all that, I felt like I was the one that needed a few days break. A fairly uneventful week passed by quite quickly after that drama, and day by day we grew closer to the wedding. By tradition, Sarah and I had to stay separated for the final few nights. It was apparently bad luck for us to see each other again until we were in the church itself. It was an odd custom, but Sarah's family were quite adamant about it, so much so that they practically packed Sarah's bags for her as they hurried her out of the house. I was not thrilled that Sarah was leaving again so soon, but knowing she was at her parents' house did seem to ease my nerves this time. I was rehearsing my own wedding vows when I started getting a phone call. I went to pick it up, assuming it was Sarah checking in on me. To my surprise though, it was a friend asking me to meet me at a bar, encouraging me to relax a little before tomorrow. An hour later, I had relented and was drinking a beer with my friends. Everyone was talking and joking around. When I first arrived, the atmosphere was quite strange. I noticed that the others were avoiding eye contact with me and seemed to be somewhat uncomfortable about me. After a little while, things turned more serious when they explained why they had really invited me out here. They said before that they had not found Sarah when she went missing, but that was not true. Sarah had been going out to bars with her friend each night and partying like crazy, all the while I struggled on the edge of a mental breakdown. I thought that was the worst they could tell me, but I was dead wrong. Sarah was also caught flirting with and kissing various guys on these nights out, something all of the friends could attest to. I was even told that she went way further than kissing with some of them. I was shocked. I didn't want to believe it at first, and then it suddenly all made sense. Sarah disappearing from the bar those weeks ago, Sarah's suggestion that she said was for my benefit, her reaction to me turning her down, her few days away, my friends consoled me, told me they were sorry, and sat with me while I cried my heart out. When I was done being sad, I got angry and decided that it was Sarah's turn to feel like I did. My first reaction was to call off the wedding immediately, but after a change of heart, my friends and I spent the rest of the evenings on thoughts for revenge. I was awake and in my suit by 6 AM the next morning. I don't know if it was nerves or excitement, but I couldn't wait for the day to be over. On the way over to the church, I made a brief stop at last night's bar. My best man had a bartender friend working there who was able to silently get me a copy of some CCTV footage by the bar exposing Sarah's infidelity. A few other friends should have already been at the church with projector equipment to display it on. If asked, we planned the ruse to be a showing of lovely photos of us as a couple throughout the years. Everything would be fine as long as we all arrived before Sarah. Luckily, when I did get to the church shortly after, there were only a few cars already in the car park, all of which I recognized. Without the scrutiny of Sarah or the wedding guests, we put together the final touches with minutes to spare. The car park and the church soon began to fill up quickly as I stood by the entrance to greet the oncoming queue of relatives. Many gave congratulations as well as wedding gifts, both of which I half expected they would be taking back before the ceremony was over. Before I knew it, the alarm on my phone chimed for 10 AM, signaling that Sarah would be arriving soon. It was time to start the plan. I took my place by the altar, the center stage of today's performance, and waited. A decadent white limo swung into view and pulled out alongside the wide-open entrance of the church. The door slowly opened, outstepping Sarah's mom and then the bride herself. Sarah wore a stunning white dress that resembled the waves of the ocean, stretching in long layers of fabric that she dragged along the ground behind her. The traditional music kicked off, and for the slightest moment I felt a sting of hesitation in my revenge, and I nearly ended up falling for her charms. My best man could see me faltering and grabbed me tightly by the shoulder. To anyone else, this action could have been him congratulating me, but it was more like him telling me to stay strong and stick to the plan. I played along and smiled, spoke sweet words Sarah wanted to hear, and got ready. When it came time to exchanging vows, I was preparing my notes when Sarah started first. I was surprised at the initiative, but it did nothing to change my mind. With a nod to my team, the projector was readied as I said my piece. I have loved you ever since I first laid eyes on you from across the classroom. Over the years we have disagreed, argued, struggled, but always found a way to come back to each other. I believe that would not break us, it would only make us stronger. The video flickered to life behind me, which is why I want you to know your choice to betray me, sneak away into the night, and cheat on me days before this wedding was not the final nail in this coffin. It is that you lied to me afterwards and hid these events from me. That is what truly breaks my heart the most, Sarah. You have ruined this wedding and you have destroyed us. Sarah's face had twisted from shock to misery as the evidence was revealed to a gasping audience. She took off in tears, stumbling back down the aisle as family members followed after her. In the days that followed, Sarah's father and brother came by to pack her bags. She did not return to the house once or try to contact me again. She knew her life with me was over for good. You could say that I dodged a nuclear missile with this one. A tough lesson to learn, but an important one, let me tell you. And honestly, Ripestars, I'm surprised that OP did not end the relationship right then and there when Sarah told him about opening the relationship temporarily. That is just the craziest thing you could ever say, and honestly, that was already the biggest red flag you could ever see. What would you do if your spouse, SO or whatever, would suggest something like that to you? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily videos. The next one is a revenge story. So this started about a year ago with a campaign solicitation text saying, "Hi Donna, fake name, I have a few friends named Karen and they are the nicest ladies you would ever meet. This is the headquarters of candidate X. I'm running for county name at office. Can we count on your vote?" I would text back that they had the wrong number and get an apologetic response with a promise to remove my number, but I continued to get political as well as real estate solicitations. "Hi Donna, I'm with XYZ Realtors. I was wondering if you were looking to sell your property at 123 Main Street. On top of that, I started getting calls from collection agents trying to reach Donna. No matter how many times I said they had a wrong number, they kept calling. Now, these text numbers, based on their area code, originated in the opposite end of the country where I live. With just a first name, a partial address, and an area code from that region, I went online to do a reverse address lookup. I found a site where, when I typed in the start of an address, it brought up a pick list with possible combinations for the house number and street name. I found an address that was in a town that was part of the area code where the texts came from. Sure enough, the information pulled up Donna's full name, her full address and cell phone number. So I sent her the following text. "Hello Donna, you don't know me, but you apparently know my number. Please stop giving it out to solicitors, collection agencies, companies and campaigners. Thanks to online research, I have your name, address and phone number. So I will say it again, stop giving out my number." I don't know if this emboldened her because the texts kept coming, so I simply forwarded them to her and texted, "Whenever I get a solicitation in your name, I'm gonna forward them to you." In addition, I would text solicitors back and provide them with Donna's correct cell number. I've not received a solicitation text ever since. As for the collectors, I have an app on my phone that converts text to speech so that I don't have to talk directly with robocallers and the like. Since I can preload text replies, I created one regarding Donna, so whenever I got a collection call looking for Donna, I provided this automated response. "You have the wrong number. This person, Donna X, has been giving out my phone number to deflect collectors from contacting her. I don't know her or even live in her state. However, I managed to get some information about her thanks to some online research. Her correct phone number is XYZ. The collection calls have since stopped as well, so Reddit, was I wrong to contact Donna and put her on alert? Or should I have just discreetly passed her number off to those trying to reach her?" And yeah, Ripestars, I'm not sure if OP is the a-hole in this story or not, but let me know what you think about it in the comments. Anyway, the next one is a story from r/am-I-the-jerk, and it is about a restaurant incident. My friend Jack and I, after a long stressful week, like to go to the local pizza place. It's not fine dining by any stretch of the imagination, but there are booths and tables of people sitting down. I see a large table near us of like 10 people, a few couples and a bunch of small kids between like 4 and 8. The kids are running around the restaurant being loud while the adults are drinking wine and eating pizza. I ignore the commotion for like 20 minutes when suddenly I feel like a hand on my leg and one of the little kids is crawling under Jack and my table. I was not thinking and snapped at the kid and said, "Get away from our table," and the kid ran away and burst into tears. One of the parents at the other table came over and started tearing into me about how cranky and mean I was and how dare I yell at her kid who was just playing. Meanwhile, her and the other middle-aged 40-something parents are letting their kids run amok and be loud and obnoxious while my friend and I are trying to enjoy a night out. I ripped her a new one and said, "How entitled do you need to be to think it's okay to let your kids just crawl under other people's tables? She called me an a-hole and walked away in a huff. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole for yelling at the kid or not? Personally, I would say OP was definitely not the a-hole, and these parents clearly failed to establish boundaries for their children. And I mean, if you're unable to establish these boundaries, then someone else might scream at your kid. That's just how it is. Anyway, one comment said, "Not the a-hole, her exhaustion, boundaries and parental philosophy create no obligations for you. Your personal space was invaded, you reacted to repair that." Comment number 2, "Not the a-hole, you're not in a jungle gym and your table is not a play space." Comment number 3, "Not the a-hole. People who don't scold their kids should not be surprised when their kids get scolded by strangers, especially if they are just letting their kids go around and invade people's personal space. You did not do anything wrong and the mom and all the rest of those parents are all major a-hole." The next one is titled, "Greedy relatives screwed me over and I got revenge." Now that I came back from the notary about an hour ago, I can finally close this chapter of my life. So here it goes. I would like to start with the fact that I live in Russia and I'm not a good storyteller. And by the way guys, this story is like 7 years old or something, so it has nothing to do with the current events. Anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know, I'll try to clarify. So it all begins about 3 years ago at my grandma's funeral. She passed away at the age of 73, leaving behind 3 sisters, one of which ended her own life a long time ago, a plethora of grandkids and quite a lot of real estate. When the paperwork tsunami regarding inheritance started, something began to smell fishy. My alive aunt was extremely hesitant in giving us the death certificate. This would allow us to start filing for inheritance. Things started to get complicated and confusing, so I had to take over all the paperwork and to help my mother out. I then find out that the apartment my grandmother lived in for some reason no longer belonged to her, but was signed off to the kids of my aunt. Upon further inspection, I realized that most of my grandmother's belongings were signed off to my aunt long before my grandmother's death. First, I decided to speak to my mom. She told me that on the date the papers were signed, my grandmother was already in pretty bad shape. Dementia and Alzheimer's had already gotten the best of her, and she was not legally able to sign them. So then I decided to go to my aunt, still not wanting to believe that she screwed us over. I, sincerely believing that it was all an honest deal, asked her how it all happened. I'll never forget her response. I never thought someone could say this to a relative. She told me that it was none of my business, that she intends to get everything she can, and the rest of the real estate that will be shared property she will force us out of. I was baffled. I couldn't understand how she could do something like this to my mother. I had to do something. The next day I spoke with my mother. She was shocked and devastated, in tears. She also could not understand how her own sister could do such a thing. Especially after all the things she did for her, like helping her make a career in sports, helping with money during hard times, etc. I knew we needed to go to court. The problem with that was that my mother is a working pensioner and is still raising my 13-year-old brother. And I just spent all my savings on renovating her apartment. Money was an issue. Well, luckily I made good friends with our company lawyer at work and he offered to help me. We collected all the needed paperwork and he told me to document any further encounters with their family and to keep an eye out for anything fishy. After that, we sent a letter to my aunt saying that we will dispute everything in court. This is where my life became hell. It all started out with threat calls from her sons. That's no biggie though. I recorded all of the phone conversations. They found out where I work and live and started stalking me. Again, no biggie. A while back my boss made me an offer for a driver to pick me up to and from work, because the driver lived nearby me. About time I hit him up on that offer, so I did. One morning, I wake up and get ready to work. My driver is downstairs waiting for me. I put on a coat and head downstairs. I then open the door to my apartment complex and get hit in the face by my oldest cousin. He threatens me again and flees the scene. The driver runs up, helps me up and tells me that it was all recorded on the car's front camera. Then calls my boss and takes me to the hospital. The next day, I take the video and all of the phone conversations to the police. They accept everything. When the police contacted my aunt searching for her son that punched me, she was livid. She called me and spat threats in the phone. I reminded her that her son is already in trouble for threatening me. She hangs up and about a week later I wake up in the middle of the night from loud banging on my door. As I'm walking to the door, it gives in and flies open. Two large men walk in, stating this is now their apartment as well. Handing me the papers, they said, "If you want to remain healthy, you should pack your stuff and go." I then call the police. Police comes, checks the paperwork, and it's totally fine. It turned out my aunt hired professional, let's call them professional inconveniencers. They make money by forcing people to move out of shared homes. She gave them a part of her right of ownership and they were legally allowed to move in. The next 3 months I routinely had to pick my door because they kept changing the locks. I had to deal with constant loud music, dirt and filth in my own house, and barely any sleep. After 3 months they gave up and left. Seeing that this didn't work, my cousin family decided to desperately F with me. One night, one of them walked into my apartment complex and started spraying pepper spray at my door to try and lure me out. Unfortunately for him, I was cleaning the house and doing some minor work after the goons they hired. All of my doors were pretty insulated with rags and towels to prevent concrete dust flying everywhere. I barely smelled the pepper spray. Court was due the next day. I barely convinced my mother to ask for her sister to be eliminated from inheriting anything. After I showed the court video and audio of them threatening and assaulting me, it was finally done. The court ruled in our favor. Upon returning from court, I went to the police to tell them about the pepper spray incident. I was rushed into a room and questioned. It turned out my elderly neighbor died from lung complications caused by the pepper spray. So here I am today, just returned from the notary, where my mother signed all the real estate to her name. I got a significant amount of money for assault and threats, and my piece of crap aunt is left with her tiny apartment and a son in prison for assault, threats of violence, and homicide. Her second son was fired from the rescue team and is no longer able to work for any government or social structures. And he does not know how to do anything else. They are bankrupt and it serves them right. Update to the story: there still seems to be confusion about how my aunt got the goons in, so I'll try to explain. Well, basically, you have what's called a right of ownership. Before my grandmother's death, she was the sole holder of the right. After her death and some manipulation from my aunt got about 3/4 of the right of ownership and my mother got 1/4. Now, you can do anything you want with the right, you can sell it, give it away, etc. Anyone holding the right has the legal ability to use the apartment and house. My aunt gave the goons a tiny portion of her right so they could freely and legally enter and live. And here, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this revenge story. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. This story happened in Latvia in 2000. To sum it all up, I am in the military. I'm a military spouse and I've been married to my husband for 5 years. I got stationed in Kosovo during the war, and in early 2000, right around when it ended, they wanted us to go do some military drills and make sure that everything was okay to keep the peace. I did not want to go, but I thought since I was serving my country and eventually I feel helped in the formation of Latvia joining NATO, it would be a good thing. My husband and I have been on the same page about everything up to this point, and we had a good relationship. I trusted him with all my heart and experienced only the best in our relationship in terms of happiness. I always believed that he would be the better person, but then things got a little bumpy. My husband had an affair with a 15-year-old girl while I was away. I was shocked, and to be honest, I'm always on my guard now. I did not know that I had to be that way in my own personal life and in my relationships, but now I do. I always saved that for my career in the military, but now I know the enemy can come from any direction. You just have to watch out. I never thought my own husband would be the enemy though. To make matters even worse, I could not believe that he was having an affair with a 15-year-old girl, for crying out loud. Not only is it against the law, but it is just plain sick, and to me it was a total turn-off. The fact that he kept it a secret for so long and hid it, even while he would pretend to be happy and in love in our marriage, was a slap in the face. I was angry beyond words. I remember it clearly. I was outside the military base in a park on my day off running, and then I get this phone call. It was not just any random phone call, but it was an anonymous person. They did not want to state their name or where they lived, but they told me that my friend's daughter was out with my husband eating at a restaurant and saw the two in the car together doing something. I don't actually want to describe it. Given the fact that we live in a small town in Latvia, everybody pretty much knows everybody, and we are in a close relationship and with the community. So it's very strange that my husband was actually out eating with my best friend's 15-year-old daughter. I'm not even sure at the time if my best friend knew about it, but I would later come to find out. It was very strange actually, because the person that tipped me off found them in the car together, but I literally came to find out that the 15-year-old daughter was the one that went to the friend and told her about it. I guess she got concerned, or maybe the friend that tipped me off was concerned. Either way, somebody came forward and told them about the relationship that she had with my husband and that it was awkward and needed to end. I was furious and devastated. All these thoughts were going through my head. I was role-playing with myself and trying to figure out what my husband was actually doing. What was even more weird was that I always remember my husband welcoming my best friend over with her daughter for dinners, nights out shopping, and having fun in our backyard. I never suspected though that he had an attraction for this girl, and it never dawned on me that she had one for him as well. So I felt blindsided and I started to cry when I got done with my run. Why the F would you do this to me, Marcus? I screamed while getting into my military vehicle, a million thoughts going through my head. And what if the daughter was in love with my husband? And how could I have been so stupid this whole entire time? Let's just say the next few weeks were brutal. I was still stationed in Kosovo and couldn't leave until my next leave of absence, which was due in about 3 weeks. I was hard on myself the whole time leading up to returning home. I didn't get any sleep and the relationship I thought I had with my husband was disintegrating before my eyes. I did not want him to know that I actually knew. I wanted it to be a surprise, so leading up to the day of my flight, I mentally prepared myself. I was going to pull a fast one on him and try to catch him in the act. The only way to do this though was tricky, because I knew that he would be on his guard as well when I returned, so I did something very simple. In fact, it was twofold. I had my Disca something, which is a Latvian word that no one outside of Latvia can pronounce obviously, who was my officer ranked above me, get a list of all the numbers called on my personal phone during a set period of time, and I also called a nearby restaurant who I happened to know the owner of, check up on my husband and to get back with me. The reason for this was simple. While I was on base, we had poor cell phone service, and in fact we were not really assigned a cell phone during military operations. Instead, we had to use the landline on the military base to make calls back home for family and friends. Then I went to my ranking officer above me to get in touch with their officer to see if I could get a record of all the phone calls that my husband made, because I told him that something was wrong back at home. They immediately checked for me and I found a record of every single phone call that he made to my best friend's daughter. And well, what was even more strange I thought was, why would my best friend be in on this? Did she even know that her daughter was hanging out with my husband? I also called the nearby restaurant that was near the restaurant where my husband and daughter would hang out. I told the owner that he needed to check up on my husband because I thought I saw him in the car slumped over. Although I knew what he was doing, I wanted to be sure and be a little bit discreet about my intentions. I did not want the whole community to know what was going on. A few days later at the base, before my trip back home, I got a call from the restaurant owner and he confirmed that my husband truly was with this daughter, the daughter of the friend. I was devastated and even more livid. I told the restaurant owner to write a note saying that he saw my husband on such and such date at a certain time, that way I would have a record of it. The owner did not know what I was up to. He just wanted to make sure that my husband and I were okay. And once I got back home, things just got out of hand. I remember it clearly. My husband picked me up from the airport with smiles on his face, greeting me and hugging me, even kissing me like we had been lovers for so long. He even wanted intercourse. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking, this guy is literally messing around with a 15-year-old girl behind my back and I'm disgusted by it. When we get back to our home, I threw down my bags in the garage and head into the living room. I remember it clearly. I poured myself a cold cup of water and sat down. My husband thinks that we should go out to eat, so I let him know where we should go. I told him, why don't we go eat at the restaurant you were at a few days ago with Sophia? He looked at me with a cold stare. Sophia? What do you mean? I was not there. I turned around to conceal the tears flowing from my eyes. And then I let him have it. The F you were not there. I have proof. Email told me. I know what you're doing, Marcus. You cannot lie to me. You cannot lie to me, you idiot. That confrontation was one of the longest I've ever had in my life. I didn't ever think I could cry so many tears. To this day, I'm still shaken up by it. I remember calling my best friend when Marcus ended up denying everything. I told her that Sophia was hanging around my husband and there was infidelity too. Of course, she knew of nothing. She told me that her daughter was hanging out with friends in the square the night that my husband was with Sophia. I thought you were my friend, I told her. And on it went for weeks. She tried to apologize, but I blocked her out of my life. I thought I was gonna have to deal with this on my own until she came up to my doorstep one day while Marcus was gone and told me that she knew of a lawyer in town and that she would be willing to pay for some of the lawyer fees. I know in Latvia it's a criminal case when dealing with minors. I tried to press my best friend for details, but her daughter would not confide in her. I guess she was too ashamed. But finally, her daughter said that there was inappropriate touching on behalf of my husband, which led to advances that she actually did not like. I consulted a lawyer my best friend referred to who dealt with family and criminal law. I figured it was my best bet at this point and I needed justice. I filed for divorce on grounds of infidelity and statutory violations. I also pursued criminal charges against my husband for the illegal relationship that he had with my best friend's minor daughter. With the help of the witness I had at the restaurant and the phone call logs, it helped to garner my case in a positive direction. At first the court was skeptical, but they came around after having significant evidence. I was awarded alimony from the divorce and the case got media attention as well here in Latvia. I think that helped to persuade my case. The whole community ended up knowing about it and stood beside me. Although it was embarrassing and devastating, it was very helpful to have people around me that were gonna help. My husband was found guilty of statutory rape among other charges. He ended up going to prison. Even after everything was all over, I finally found the pieces to pick back up and move on with my life. I moved to the other side of the country, far away from my hometown. I needed a fresh start. I began hiking more, spending time near the water, and focusing on my mental health. I can say that whatever you go through is just an experience. You will heal with time and it only makes you stronger. I would know because I'm a better partner now and I'm a better person. And yeah guys, this husband certainly got what he deserved. I hope he won't leave prison anytime soon. That guy is definitely the scum of the earth. Either way, if you enjoy the relationship stories, please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously since YouTube is giving me a really hard time currently. The next one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for getting creative revenge on my military bunkmates after they ate my care package?" I've been stationed overseas for about 2 years now. Military life is not easy, but you learn to appreciate the small things that remind you of home. My grandparents have always been supportive of my service, and they occasionally send care packages to boost morale. These packages are like gold out here, a taste of home in a place that can often feel cold and distant. Last month I received what was probably the best care package I'd ever gotten. My grandparents had outdone themselves. 7 pounds of homemade fudge and cookies. Anyone who's had real homemade fudge knows that there's nothing like it in the world, especially when it's made with love by your grandma who's been perfecting her recipe for decades. The timing was not great though. Almost immediately after receiving it, I was informed that I'd be heading out on a long-range mission. 2 months in the field, no chance to enjoy my treats. I carefully stored the package in our barracks and specifically told my 3 bunkmates not to touch it. "This is important to me," I explained, making eye contact with each of them. "My grandparents made this by hand. I will share everything when I get back. Just please don't touch it while I'm gone." They all nodded and promised to leave it alone. My squad leader even gave me his word. "Don't worry, it'll be here waiting for you." I believed them. That was my first mistake. 2 months later I returned exhausted but looking forward to finally enjoying my grandparents' treats. I opened my footlocker expecting to see the carefully wrapped package exactly as I'd left it. Instead though, I found an almost empty box with less than a pound of fudge and cookies remaining. At first I couldn't process what I was seeing and then the anger hit me like a wave. I turned to my bunkmates who were suddenly very interested in cleaning their gear. "What the F happened to my care package?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. One of them glanced up and said, Oh yeah, we got hungry one night, but we saved you some." "Some? Some? There was 7 pounds here. You left me less than 1. Another bunkmate shrugged. "Come on, it's just cookies. Not like we took your gear or anything important." That is when something inside me snapped. Not just cookies? My grandma had arthritis that made it painful for her to bake, and yet she had spent hours making these treats because she knew how much I loved them. But I did not explode. Instead I went quiet. Really quiet. You know what? It's fine. I said, walking away. One of them later told me that they would have preferred if I just punched them in the face. Well, they knew something was coming, they just did not know what. My squad has a saying, when he goes silent, that is when you should worry. For the next few weeks, I was the model soldier. I didn't mention the care package again. I was pleasant, even helpful, but I was planning. Oh, was I planning? The opportunity came when we were assigned to a joint training exercise that required us to travel in the same vehicle for 8 hours. The night before I put my plan into action, I should mention that I'm severely lactose intolerant, like catastrophically so. Normally, I avoid dairy like it's poison because the results are explosive. But that night, I deliberately consumed 2 full boxes of Oreos and a gallon of milk. My stomach was already making concerning noises as I went to sleep. The next morning, we loaded up into our transport vehicle. It was hot, cramped, and had poor ventilation. This was perfect. I made sure that I was positioned by the top hatch where I could get fresh air. As we set out, I secured my gear around my waist in a way that created a seal with the hatch opening. About an hour into the journey, when we were too far out to turn back, my stomach gave the warning signs. It was time. I relaxed my body and unleashed what can only be described as biological warfare. The aftermath was catastrophic. The smell was so vile, so utterly horrific, that my bunkmates started gagging immediately. Within minutes, all 3 were vomiting. The driver was cursing and trying desperately to open windows that did not even exist. One guy was crying, literally crying, as he tried to escape the inescapable cloud. "What the hell, man?" one of them managed between heaves. I just looked down at them, made direct eye contact and said, "That's for my grandma's fudge." The worst part for them? We still had 7 hours to go and I was not finished. By the time we reached our destination, the inside of that vehicle looked like a scene from a horror movie. The smell had permeated everything. Their clothes, their gear, even their skin seemed to reek. Word spread quickly around base about what happened. Most people found it hilarious, but a few thought that I'd gone too far. Our commanding officer called me into his office. "This true about what happened in transport?" he asked, trying to maintain a serious expression. "Yes, sir. Had a bad reaction to some dairy." He stared at me for a long moment. "And this wouldn't have anything to do with your care package situation?" "Cannot say for sure what caused it, sir." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Well then, get checked by medical and maybe stay away from dairy in the future." That was the extent of my official reprimand. The aftermath was surprisingly satisfying. My bunkmates had to pay to have the vehicle professionally cleaned. They also pooled their money to reimburse me for the market value of the fudge and cookies, but money couldn't replace what was lost. My grandmother passed away 3 months later before she could send another package. That batch of fudge was the last she ever made and I never got to taste it. The thing is, my bunkmates and I eventually became close again. Military life forces you to move past conflicts. We are good now, and they've never touched any of my personal stuff since. However, sometimes I wonder if I went too far. Did I overreact to some eaten snacks? Should I have just let it go? And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Was OP the a-hole or not? Comment number 1, not the a-hole. As a fellow service member, I know how precious care packages are. What they did was equivalent to stealing. Your revenge was just teaching them about consequences. Comment number 2, everyone sucks here. Your bunkmates were complete a-holes, no question, but deliberately crapping yourself in a confined space for hours? That is some serial killer origin story right there. Get help both for the weird revenge fantasies and your digestive issues. Comment number 3, you're the a-hole. Look, I get being pissed, but you could have just reported them to your CO. Instead you went full nuclear and created a biohazard situation. That is not revenge, that is straight up assault, on the senses I guess, and bragging about it? Just gross. And the next one is an Am I the a-hole story. I, 29 male, have a wife who is 6 months pregnant. She does not work, she wants to be a stay-at-home mom while I work, which is completely fine. Recently though, her hormones, or at least I hope it's the hormones, and have been very angry towards me. I've been trying to help her through it all and give her any craving she wants, even going out at 1 in the morning to get her some lemon juice. The other day I had a long day at work and was very tired and I just wanted to go home and sleep. When I got home, my wife greeted me and then asked me if I would bake her a cookie cake that she's been craving because she likes how I make it. I apologized to her saying that I'm tired and would make it for her tomorrow when I come back home from work and bring her some Panda Express. She started saying saying that she is the one who's pregnant and that I should not be tired. I did not answer her, I was tired and went upstairs to sleep, but she kept yelling at me that she is craving cookie cake and she wants it now, so I told her to stop being a brat and wait for tomorrow. She slammed the door on me and went downstairs. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think, is OP the a-hole here or not? Reddit said, not the a-hole, yeah, she's having a kid and growing a baby, but you also get to sleep too. She doesn't get to yell when her every craving is not instantly granted. You're not a genie. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, she is pregnant, not in a vegetative state. She can handle things by herself and even more so if she is still in the second trimester. Invalidating you and your effort is a-holery. If she becomes more demanding over time, then you definitely need to have a sit down with her. Comment number 3, not the a-hole, you get to be tired as well, and being 6 months pregnant without complications and any other obligations throughout the day, she should be able to make her own cookie cake. Being pregnant is no excuse for being an entitled a-hole. Women should not use pregnancy as an excuse to do absolutely nothing and demand everything from their husbands or boyfriends. Of course, a pregnancy with complications is a different story. For your info though, I'm a woman myself and have been pregnant 3 times. The amount of times I made ridiculous requests? 0. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. This one is titled, No More Hit and Runs. So I never knew about this community until now, so I'm happy to share my story. This happened a few years ago. So my fiancé at the time, now wife, were driving around looking for dresses for her bridesmaids to wear for the wedding. We had been going from place to place looking for something she liked, but no luck. We had just finished leaving David's bridal and were leaving the plaza. It had been raining a lot, so the roads were slick. As I reached the intersection of where the plaza met the road to turn out, another car came turning in. Unfortunately, he did not brake soon enough and skidded into the front end of the driver's side. Thankfully, everyone was okay. We got out of our cars and looked at the damage. His car, of course, was completely unharmed and mine had a minor dent. He looked about 45-ish and had his son in the car with him. We then exchanged names and phone numbers and he let me know that he was on the way to work and I told him we were just wedding shopping. I was 22 at the time and very naive as to what to do in the case of an accident. He told me that we both seemed pretty busy and that we should just handle it ourselves since we were both busy. We did not call the police, which was my mistake, and he told me to get the damage looked at to see what it would cost. I took the car in 2 days later and they quoted me $1,100 for the bumper to be replaced. I texted him and he told me he will be getting scholarships in 2 months and when he goes back to school and he would be able to pay me in cash then. I again naively told him that would be fine. A week later I followed up with him about another estimate I got, which was lower than the original, $900, but I got no response. I texted him again and again for the next few days and nothing. At this point I realized he had bailed. I came up with a plan to find him. All I had was his name, a now useless phone number, and a general area of where he worked. I searched for him on Facebook and was pretty sure I found him. I searched under his family members and saw what looked to be like his son. My soon-to-be sister-in-law was 16 and looked about the same age as his son. I decided to go off full-on sleuth and go undercover. I used her Facebook and changed her last name to match theirs. I then messaged the son and told him that I thought we might be cousins. I asked him some questions about his dad, like name and his job, and told him that my mom said I have an uncle down there by that name and worked at this guitar shop. He answered yes, that was his dad's name and told me the name of the place where his dad worked. I was so relieved I was making progress. The next day I drove back up near the accident and found where the man worked. I found his car and took pictures of his license plate. I then took all the info I had and went to the courthouse. I filled out paperwork and handed it to the clerk. The clerk told me they could either mail the form to his work address or if I paid $25 I could have an officer hand deliver it. Of course, I paid the $25 just to embarrass him at his place of work. A few weeks later, we were summoned to the court to see if we could work things out before going to an actual hearing. He showed up and we sat down with a mediator. She explained everything to all of us. I told him I didn't want to do this, but he stopped responding. He replied that his phone was stolen, so he had to get a new one. In my mind, a phone being stolen does not equal changing your phone number. I knew he was lying. The moderator asked him to step outside. She talked to us and told us not to trust him because his story did not make sense. The mediator invited him back inside and we read over the terms I listed in the court documents. He was to pay $2,400. I charged him the original replacement cost, gas from driving back and forth, my time for doing all this work and extra just for being an a-hole. He said he would pay but did not like that I went to his job and took pictures of his car. I replied I did not like that he hit my car. A few months later he paid the full amount in cash and had to pay for our court costs as well. I sold the damaged car and took the cash he gave me to buy another car fully in cash. All in all, I benefited from it, but next time I will just call the cops and save myself the headache. And the next one is a wholesome story from r/wholesome stories and is titled "The cashier kept talking to my grandma." So I was in line with my grandma at a grocery store and she was moving slow. I just literally had to glance at their watches and shift their weight, like her age is personally inconveniencing them or something, but the cashier did not rush her at all. He asked her how her day was going, patiently waited for every answer, laughed at her little jokes, and then surprisingly helped her repack a bag when she fumbled it the first time. Nobody noticed, or no hidden camera at least to appreciate him or anything. He was just patient in a world that usually isn't. And my grandma smiled all the way to the car, like someone had reminded her that she still belonged in it. And yeah guys, thanks for watching. I will see you again tomorrow and I hope you have a beautiful day.